Okay, folks, I think we're all here. Welcome to our April 1st, 2021 GMAC meeting on Zoom. And this is no joke, we're having a meeting, okay? Introductions and announcements. All 4 council members are here. Any announcements that we might have? Any council members? I know today was our deadline on filing our conflict of interest statements, this Form 700 form. So that's, you all knew that. Any other announcements? Okay, we'll move on to consent agenda, approval of minutes from our March 4th Zoom meeting. Mary's had some difficulties with her computer. We're gonna table those March minutes until our May 6th meeting. Do we need a motion on that? Or we'll just table them till May 6th and then we'll approve or disapprove of them, okay?
You want a motion, Robert?
Well, we don't have them ready, so I don't think we need one.
Okay.
Correspondence. Do we have any correspondence this month, Mary? That you know of?
We did have that bill from MCN? No.
MCN, that was it, huh? Okay.
Right, they wanted the yearly whatever, and that was all. The usual THP reports were all for Humboldt County or Del Norte or wherever, Sonoma, but not in any Sonoma or any Gualala River. So they were just filed away, and there was a couple of pieces of junk mail. Okay. But other than that, no.
Not much, okay. So,
yeah, the junk mail was also filed in the round file.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we'll move on to approval of agenda, tonight's agenda. Any edits we need to make? Everybody okay with it the way it is? Then we'll take a motion for that. If somebody could make a motion to approve tonight's April 1st agenda.
We'll move to approve. Oh, let's let Melissa do it. I'll second.
I haven't done it before. They're always too long. I don't approve of them. I make a motion that we approve the agenda as is.
Okay. And a second we have from
Tom Murphy.
Tom Murphy. Okay. So I'll do the vote here. Melissa.
Aye.
Don.
I had to unmute myself. Aye.
Aye. Tom.
Aye.
And Robert. I'm an aye. Okay, so we approve of tonight's agenda. Move on to public input on non-agenda items. Anybody in our audience want to talk about something that's not on the agenda? Something that's just in general on their minds? Anybody? Okay, seeing none or hearing none?
Pray for rain.
Well, yeah. We'll move on to Mendocino County Law Enforcement. So we have Sheriff Matt Kendall here tonight. We have JD Comer here tonight, right?
Yes, sir.
So you've got the floor. What's been going on?
All right. Well, I spent quite a bit of time down in Gualala today, and then I spent some time up on the ridge, stopped in at the airport and whatnot. I ran into one person who was on a motorcycle speeding that I simply could not catch up with, to be honest with you. They passed by me. I turned around. I couldn't even get close to them. I'll be having further discussions with the Highway Patrol regarding that problem on the ridge. For the most part, people were driving, I would say, pretty well up there, with the exception of that one fellow on a motorcycle, and he was driving like a 22-year-old on a motorcycle. We've had some crime down here. Lieutenant Comer can discuss that in better detail than what I can, but the good news is we got it wrapped up pretty darn quick, which is the way that we like to see it. We all realize that with the weather being the way that it is right now, fire season is going to come sooner than later. This year, our drought is causing me concerns to the point that I'm not certain that we won't see some serious fire seasons in May. Things that we would normally see in August to October could very well pose a problem for us in May. And so if there's any way that the MAC can work really hard with us to make sure that the areas around the houses are cleaned, that brush is gone, just do what you can to protect your homes. People like to think that the coast is exempt from this because of the microclimates over here. That is simply not true anymore. We've seen, back in the 50s, heck, most of elk burned up. It's going to be on our minds the entire year. So if we can just get people empowered through education, I think that'll serve us the best. With the vaccines and everything rolling out in the fashion that they are, I think we're going to see a lot of people coming to the coast because the shelter in place orders, the things like that are going to be gone here pretty quick. Now, it's a good thing, but at the same time, we're going to have to re-educate everyone who comes to our area about fire safety, about driving safety. There's going to be a lot of people out this year, but we just need to stay on top of it and make sure that people understand, where we're coming from and the dangers that some of these things possess. So I'll turn it over to Lieutenant Comer to talk about the amount of crime that we've had down here and what we've done to take care of it. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, good evening. So to start off for the month of March, we've had a variety of different calls for service. The more serious in nature ones include, we've had a total of 6 burglaries that have occurred in the Gualala area, 2 domestic related assaults, 4 vandalisms, 1 disturbance, which occurred at the Gualala Surf Supermarket, and a violation of a court order. So those are the more serious in nature. That doesn't account for all of them. Yesterday, we also had the fire down there that was on the south side of China Gulch. I'm sure you're all aware of that, but that occurred in between Old Stage Road and Highway 1. And that was a unlawful burn that occurred. Fortunately, fire was able to locate that and respond and put that out fairly quickly. I think it probably covered about an acre. And so both South Coast and Redwood Coast Fire responded to that. Give props to those guys for their response and getting that out in time. As far as the unlawful burn side of it goes, the Cal Fire Prevention Unit will be investigating that and taking that case on. We also had our Point Arena substation broken into a couple days ago, and to the amount that it amounted to a burglary. So with all this being said, as far as the burglaries and vandalisms go, I would definitely would like to recognize and show my appreciation to the community members that called the sheriff's office, both from Gualala and Point Arena, because those calls ultimately led to our response to some situations and being very efficient and effective in resolving some major problems as well as crimes that occurred during the month of March. And I want to say probably the most problematic people right now on the South Coast are in custody, and who are responsible for the majority of the calls, we believe, that I just broadcasted to you. So keep up, for the community, keep up that good work. And if you see something suspicious in nature, that's all it takes. Make that call. You never know what that's going to lead to, nor do we, but we appreciate the calls. And as far as I know CHP, Sergeant Finnegan's not on today, but I also had a conversation with the CHP officer down on the South Coast yesterday. They have been issuing quite a few traffic violation tickets on Highway 1 there. So I know they're definitely spending some good time down there as we are. We've almost had coverage on the South Coast every day during the month of March, which is good. So I'm proud to report that. Because it's well deserved. Outside of that, that's all I have for you. and happy to take any questions.
JT, what the best number to reach you is what again? You directly or Matt?
Is reaching
Dispatch.
for what?
When we
For
need
reporting
to call
stuff?
reporting stuff.
Okay, perfect. So if it's a crime that you believe is occurring, has occurred, or is going to occur, call our dispatch center. That number is 707-961-2421. And if it's a non-emergency, if it's an emergency situation, then call 911. If it's non-emergency, it's a crime that you think is non-emergency, call the 707-961-2421.
That's dispatch. Okay.
Yes, and then anybody is that has information that they don't want to maybe report to dispatch, would prefer to email. They're more than welcome to email me. My email address is comerj@mendocinocounty.org.
Lieutenant Comer.
Yes, Don.
Can I ask you a question regarding the fires that people may be having, these burn pile fires in their yards? At some point here, probably fairly soon, I would imagine those are going to be disallowed due to dry conditions. After that point, what is the best way to report somebody who is at that point then likely illegally burning material in their yard?
So the first person, you can always call the burn hotline. I don't have that number available to see if it is a permissible burn day. Mm-hmm. And if, in most cases, yesterday, I believe it was a permissible burn day. It was an unlawful burn because the person did not have a permit to burn. Mm-hmm. So, and that burn pile got out of control and it spread. So, if you're observing a fire that you think it's not a permissible burn day, that would be the place I would start and just call the hotline to see if it is. If you think the fire is out of control, or maybe poses a potential threat, then I would just call the fire department. And the fire department will respond, and they will do a check and go from there.
Okay, that's fine. And actually, I know of the website to determine whether it's a permissible day to burn or not, so I can check that. I just bring this up because in the neighborhood where I live on Pacific Woods Road, there are people who tend to burn fairly frequently. And in some cases, the amount of smoke they produce is just enormous. And they're burning wet material, apparently. But I want to, be sure going forward, certainly given the fact that our region is increasingly at fire risk due to dryness, that, my neighbors don't start burning stuff when they shouldn't be burning anything.
And if that's the case, then I would call the fire department and let them respond. They'll definitely extinguish, the fire or stand by while the fire is extinguished or something similar to that. And if they're in violation of either not having a burn permit or burning on a non-permissible burn day, then further action could be taken there.
So there could be fines associated with this.
Yes, just as the one yesterday. So that'll be potentially a criminal matter, just because it was an unlawful burn. That burn did, to my knowledge, travel onto somebody else's property. Mm-hmm. So that is now a criminal matter that's being investigated by Cal Fire Prevention.
Okay.
And John, most of those,
I have a question.
Come from air quality as well as the a lot of the fire agencies have basically a cost recovery response for those illegal burns.
Thank you, Sheriff.
I have a question now that since you're talking about fires. If someone has a fire, and even if they have a permit, if it's so close to my house that it's filling up my house with smoke, even with all the windows closed, is there any recourse for me?
I think your recourse would have to be through air quality.
Correct.
Okay. Because that's happened here, and I live in Ocean View Estates, Gualala, and the burn pile that they made just a block, less than 5 houses away. It's really close, just a few less than 100 feet. It was filling up my house with smoke, and I was sick for days from it. So I was wondering, what recourse do I have?
Yes, I would definitely contact air quality management for those types of situations regarding the smoke.
Yeah, and
okay.
That number, if you need it, I've got it here on a burn permit, is 463-4391.
707.
463-4391.
And that's air quality.
Air quality and local fire district, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'm glad it'll happen again this year because it's not going to rain again. But
I have a question about the burglaries, just a real quick one, JD. Were those related, or was it separate crimes? Or were these just basically running in, taking something of value and running out?
So a couple of those cases are still under investigation, Tom. So I don't want to disclose nothing that I shouldn't. But I will say that they are related to the best of my knowledge at this point, as well as the vandalisms that are occurring in the same general area are also associated to the same person or people.
Good luck on solving that one. Thank you.
Then the motorcycle rider that Matt was talking about, I'm wondering if that's the same guy that's downtown every once in a while, and he does one of these wheelies all through the downtown streetscape section, so to say, and then once he gets up to Ocean Drive, he settles down. But he's a little bit of a younger, fanatic kind of a guy on a dirt bike, I believe.
This one was a street bike. It had dual exhaust and
okay.
I don't know, a 750 or bigger. It was a young fella who really knew how to ride well, and it was quite a bit quicker than my pickup truck. I turned around and tried to run up to him, and by the time that I got turned around, I was in a losing race. So,
yeah, this is a different guy then. He was on a dirt bike and had that louder, high-pitched sound. Okay. So, anything else from law enforcement or any other questions for law enforcement?
Well, if we don't have any other questions, I just want to kind of reiterate what Lieutenant Comer said, and the fact that you folks on the street are our eyes and ears, and we would not be able to solve any of these if it wasn't for a good partnership with the community. People paying attention to what goes on is what solves crimes. And, you know, to be honest with you, we're doing a really good job with the problems that we have down on the South Coast because people are paying attention and people are picking up calling, and we really appreciate it. It's a good partnership. Thank you.
The other number I have for you, Matt, is 463-4411. Is that correct?
Yes, it is. That's the office number there. But if you call 4085, my secretary will answer it, or it will go to a voicemail that I get on my cell phone through email. So if I'm not in the office and you leave a voicemail there, I check my email probably 30, 40 times a day.
4085, same prefix. 46.
Yes, sir. 746 4085.
Okay.
Thanks, guys. I really appreciate all you're doing.
Thank you. You guys have a good evening.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you so much, and stay well out there. We need you guys, and we appreciate you greatly.
Thank you.
All right, happy Easter.
Happy Easter to you all.
You too.
That's right.
Thank you.
Play a big trick on you guys for April Fool's Day, but I figured some of you folks got enough experience playing tricks that it wouldn't have come across good.
No,
we get enough tricks.
Yes,
You could have tried it.
yeah.
You guys take care. Bye-bye.
Okay, thanks again.
You too.
Thank you, Sheriff Kendall.
Okay, moving on to our CDP here, number 5 on the agenda. That's CDP 0029, North Gualala Water Company. The agent being Randy Burke, who's online with us. And the project being for, well, it's an administrative coastal development permit for the construction of a 29,000 gallon water tank to replace a failed pre-existing water tank. And Randy is here to fill in for us. Dawn and I, we did the site visit. We noticed many of the things that are written up here in the coastal development permit. We noticed that the main tank there, as it's referred to, the PAR tank, P-A-R-R, is currently empty, and there is a cut in the pavement going across Sunset Drive to some temporary tanks that we also noted. The pad that the old wooden tank sits on, it was obviously very out of level. So we see that the project is needed, and there's probably a lot of work that has to go into this as far as the prep of that same site. I'm sure you're going to deconstruct that old wooden tank to begin with, then make a more level pad, have to pour cement again for a steel tank. Maybe we can have Randy go into the details a little bit more, but Don and I are pretty clear on what what you're doing there, Randy, and North Gualala Water Company, and that's definitely needed for that section of the North Gualala Water District transmission line or water line. From what I understand, Randy, that was years ago. The water system there in Anchor Bay was for the greater Anchor Bay area, and then it got consolidated into the North Gualala Water Company system that originates down here in Gualala.
That's correct.
So I think you're over time making repairs to this. There's water loss issues that I'm sure the state and our local water company worries about, and old pipes but you please go into detail if you like with us.
Okay, in 2018, the Division of Drinking Water came up and more or less not cited the water company, but referred us to doing something about the tank that was leaning. Mm-hmm. The foundation is poor, and so the tank sat there until just recently with water in it, and what it does is it jumps water from down in Enchanted Meadows. If you recall, there was a pumping station down there at the bottom of the hill. Well, not the bottom, but kind of the middle of the hill going up Sunset.
That's where that big slide was years ago, right?
That's correct, and that's been rebuilt, and it's right. Top shelf. It's a real nice pumping station. It pumps up to the PAR tank.
Okay. Then
the PAR tank takes that water through another pumping system and sends it up to the Dow tank, which is up on the top of the hill. Just before you start to make your descent back toward the cul-de-sac or the end of Sunset. That tank back feeds over to part of Fish Rock and also back feeds down into a gravity line on Sunset. That's the Dow tank. That tank's just fine. So what we did was the water company enlisted Mark Carey Engineering, and you might hear that name again with Gualala Community Services District. We're kind of sharing this engineer company to go and get some grant funding to replace this tank and to upsize the water service in there and put in a more reliable system with the addition of 5 high-flow fire hydrants. So they had us we did an emergency coastal development permit to take that line across the street. And at the time we thought we'd take the tank down, but we kind of thought, you know what? Anybody who wants to look at that and see how bad it really is, once it's gone, they'll never know what the problem was. So we drained the tank and put put it over on a bypass on a lot, one of the neighbors' lots up there, formed a lease agreement with them for the property. And there are 2 tanks up there now that take that water and transfer it up to the Dow tank. And the wooden tank, the old wooden tank, is empty. Mm-hmm. That took out the liability of the gentleman who lives to the west of that tank. The liability that that tank could fall with weight behind it onto his property. So that got that emergency out of the way. Well, part of the emergency coastal development permit required that we filed a coastal development permit. In the meantime, we're looking for about $1.5 million in grant funding from the state revolving fund. And with the notice of exemption I called you about yesterday that we finally received, that was recorded by the county planner with the state clearinghouse, we have a negative declaration, and the county is going to become the lead agency, or is the lead agency on this. And so now the next step is to wait for the coastal development permit to come with its conditions. That was critical in the grant funding because we had everything else filled out. When you apply for a grant, I'm sure you know, there's about 4,000 items, and we kept ticking them off over the last year. And the last thing we needed to do was to get a negative deck statement from the county, and the county being the lead agency. So we have that now. It's gone to the FAST system of the state revolving fund, and they can put our application in now. And that'll put us in the running for the grant. The grant, we hope, will cover 100% of the cost, so it doesn't affect the ratepayers. The worst case scenario, I'm informed by the consultant, is it may only cover 75%. But we'll see, and who knows, maybe Biden's infrastructure stuff, if it goes through fast, I don't know how that works. But maybe if it goes through fast enough, we'll be doing something. I do not know exactly when the date of construction will start, but because we're waiting for the coastal development permit and of course the grant funding. Grant funding, from what I understand now that we have the application complete, to as far as I have been told, will take about anywhere from 4 to 8 months to have it processed. Stranger things have happened. Sometimes it might happen a little sooner than that, but you know, it just takes them time to go through this. In the meantime, I'll be contacting the PUC once I know what's going on, just to let them know that we're going for grant funding. And we don't know what the implications are. Like if it's 75%, there might be a little bit of a rate increase, but that would be handled by an advice letter through the PUC and maybe a hearing. I don't know yet. It's unclear to me as how that's going to work. If it's 100% financing, well, the rates will stay the same or whatever. They shouldn't be affected by this project. The procedure, there's about 3,100 feet of existing 4-inch transite pipe that serves that whole area up there. And I think if you walk the whole Sunset, there's a fire hydrant at the end, and I think there's another one back toward the Dow tank. Yeah. And then there's all these little, you know, wharf 1.5-inch fire hydrants that are coming off a 4-inch line. And I know how they fight fires. I mean, they're going to bring a tanker in, and they're going to bring their engines in, but they need a rapid supply of water at all times. And you don't really want anybody going up and down a hill on a severe fire or structure fire up there, because the road is limited in its width. It's almost like a Scottish single track. It's something you want to be careful when you're driving big rigs up and down. So putting these extra five fire hydrants in their strategic locations will provide better fire protection services. The increased size in the pipe will also allow for more flow and higher distribution of volumes should a high rate of water be needed as in a fire. So we're not taking out any of the old pipe, but we're putting right next to it, adjacent to it. The idea is to follow the old line and put the new pipe in right next to it. So until we start opening it up, we don't know how far into the road we will be. We're having a feeling that we'll have the Mark Carey Engineering Group manage the project. So once we get up to, once we get all, and we've told everybody we're shovel ready pretty much, The tank that will go up there will be a bolted steel, probably glass lined tank. George Rao has designed a footing of piers and a surrounding donut type concrete foundation upon which the tank will sit. And it's just, I think we have to do a couple more borings up there just to make sure our pier depths are correct. But we can't do that until we take the tank down. So nothing's gonna happen up there until coastal development permit is in order and all conditions of approval are considered and met or met. And I think it'll be quite an improvement for that system up there.
So it may not happen in this construction season, this construction window.
No, I doubt it'll happen in 2021.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like a 2022 project.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, you know, it's taken since 2018 to get this far. So.
Well, yeah, and I noticed that the emergency permit was taken out way back. Well, it says 2020-03. That was in 2020. Okay, that the emergency permit.
Yes.
Issued. Yeah. Okay.
I have a couple of questions, Randy.
Sure.
Number one, the temporary, those two tanks, it looks like that are on the, you know, the opposite road, some neighbor's property. Are they designed to last a number of years so that you have the necessary time to get all your ducks in a row to start, you know?
Well, they're high density polyethylene and they're NSF 61. They are water tanks and they're designed, you know, I don't think there's a lot of UV up there. They were used down at the mains tank site for several years as bypass tanks for that property down there. They're probably a 1/16 of an inch thick. They're very sturdy, and like I say, they're NSF 61, so they're for drinking water. We haven't had any problems with them yet. So yeah, I think, you know, they're the same size or same type of material that you see on people's properties around here.
Right.
So their longevity is probably 20, 30 years. It's
okay. So there aren't any worries about, you know, having to replace those with something in the interim.
Well,
the other question.
If we did, I mean, I wouldn't assume that both tanks would go out at the same time. Now, if there's a fire up there, we might have a problem.
Yeah.
Well, but
the new,
you know,
the new tank that you're planning to put in, of course, that replaces the existing wooden one, that will be fireproof.
Yeah, that'll be a bolted steel metal tank, probably glass lined. So glass lining is a coating they put on these tanks that creates a barrier to the marine layer. And your bolts and your things don't rust as fast, and your maintenance on those tanks is much less than a regular old painted water tank.
Yeah.
So, you know, for instance, we have some tanks in other places that are going to require some painting here in the next couple of years, and it's a delicate process because you have to take the tank offline. You have to provide for bypasses and other alternate storage. And then you have to go inside and clean the whole interior of the tank out, sandblast it all the way down, do the same on the outside. And now the requirement on tanks, I haven't built a steel tank in a long, long time, but now the requirement, I've painted them. Now the requirement is you need to plasticize the job. So there's no errant vault or organic compounds going into the air. So you'll see a scaffold around the whole tank and a bunch of plastic outside of the scaffolding holding all the atmosphere inside. So they're a pain to paint, they're a pain to take care of, and they do rust in this marine environment, even up on the top of the hill.
Okay, so, but those maintenance steps will be avoided with the new tank you're going to be putting in.
Pretty much, I think you know, with the experience I've seen, they have one up at Kashaya that was put in, I don't know, about eight years ago, and it's doing just fine.
I saw that about a month ago.
Yeah, they don't let you get out and take a look at it anymore. I used to know the operator up there, and I could go up and take a look at his tank, but he's retired, and they've got signs up there that don't want us up there. So
yeah,
so I'm taking pictures.
There is a curiously, there's an EV charging station right there, and
wow.
I tested it out, and you're sitting there right in front of the water tank.
Right in front of the tank.
Yeah.
So yes, it's to answer your question. Also, if you notice, I don't know if you saw the description on the plan of the building. That's the pump building that's going to be there. That's all going to be concrete CMUs with a metal roof. So the site will be more than fire retardant. It should be fireproof. Yeah.
Okay. The other question I have is, okay, so you're looking to get this $1.5 million grant. You're hoping to get all of it. You may not. So regardless of whether you get the entire grant money you're looking for or not, you are proceeding with the project.
Correct. Well, the grant money is going to be the kicker. If we don't get the grant money, we haven't had that much of a discussion. That would be a rate increase possibility. I can't speak for David or the water company in that because that's his area of expertise. But we're just really finger crossing it that we're going to receive the grant, and we're being told by the consultant who knows the people up there in the financial side of the state revolving fund that there's a very good chance we will receive it. And it started out at 75%, and then the other day I was told, you know, it might be 100. So if we don't get if we get 75%, you're looking at about $380,000 we have to finance. So the project needs some money. And if we don't get this grant this time, we may have to go into another round. But we haven't really gone down that road of what if we don't, because we're working on the promise that we might get 100%.
Okay, thank you, Randy.
Thanks, Randy. Yeah. The Dow tank, Don and I also drove up to that tank. And that's probably similar style construction to the new tank you were replacing?
Correct, but that was a painted tank, and this one will be, you know, when you get done with it, it'll be green and it'll have kind of a shine to it. You get more of a satiny appearance with the one up at Dow, but this one will have a little bit. If the sun hits it, you might get a little bit of a glare back because the glass is a coating that is proprietary, so I don't know what it consists of, but it is the protector sealant that goes on the interior and the exterior of the tank. What's the
capacity of the Dow tank, Randy?
Oh geez, I want to say 179,000, somewhere in that neighborhood, gallons.
A bigger one, okay.
Yeah.
And how long has that one lasted?
Well, let's see, when did they put it in? They put it in when David, Wade, and Floyd was still living next door. I don't know when they put that one in, Robert.
Okay.
Within the last 15 years.
Because I seem to remember when I first moved up here that those were wooden ones up there too.
Yeah, that's right. You're correct. I forgot the history on that. That was a wooden one. So, you know, wooden tanks are kind of nice, but you can't find anybody to repair them, and especially when the foundation goes away on them, they're worthless. So I'm surprised. What happened when that wooden tank started to do its shifting? The water company installed a liner so the tank wouldn't leak. Well, the problem was the liner started leaking and it was time to move on with the project. So that's where we are. So we're keeping in touch with the engineering company and with Fabian Ramos, who's up there at the State Revolving Fund. And I'm getting to know these guys all personally and talk to them on the phone. So they're aware of our situation and they're aware of our need.
Yeah, sometimes you can be on that revolving fund for years and years, right? So that'd be really advantageous if North Gualala Water Company were to get funding rather quickly. I don't know, you've been trying this for 1.5 years now, I think, or whatever, but the funding has been going on for how long?
Let's see, it's been going on, through COVID, since March. I mean,
okay. So,
I mean, we've been working on it before that, a year before that. I mean, when I was working for Mark Carey Engineering, I'm no longer working for them because of conflict possibilities. So I went to Clear Lake Oaks during all the big fires And when Paradise burned, we were working on getting the grant funding application started then. And now we're complete with the environmental determination by the county and the lead agency choice they've made.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's been a while.
And this revolving grant funds, they don't differentiate between public water agencies or water companies and more private companies?
Well, the definition of the water company, either Point Arena Waterworks, Sea Ranch, or North Gualala Water, is a privately owned, publicly regulated company.
Right. Uh-huh.
So, depending upon the mechanism of privately owned, in the Sea Ranch, it's owned by the association, and Point Arena, it's owned by Bill Hay, and here it's owned by Bauer LP. So, I don't know if I understand your question fully, but they fund anything that provides water to a municipality.
Okay.
And especially when it's come from an order of the Division of Drinking Water to do something about it.
Especially because of that. Okay, because of that order. Uh-huh. Because in the past I've heard that, they give a priority to the public agencies, the public water companies. But if that's not being necessarily, that's not a differentiation they're making necessarily, then that's good to hear.
Well, the water companies on the coast here, short of Timber Cove and Fort Bragg and Mendocino, they're all considered small rural water companies. They're not an urban supplier because they don't have 3,000 connections.
Right.
So when the water orders come down for draft monitoring and such, and the governor back in the drought of 2013, well, it depends on when you want to put the limits on the drought, 2012 to 2016, urban water suppliers are supposed to report monthly on their water conservation measures. Well, the PUC jumped in and said, well, we want all small water suppliers to do the same thing. So it meant that they didn't usurp what the state was telling everybody else. They just said, no, as an added layer of protection, we want everybody else to turn in a monthly monitoring on their conservation efforts. How much water is pumped, how much water is stored, how much water is used. And so that's what became that way. And I don't know if that's going to happen again or not, because we are facing a drought.
Mm-hmm.
Lake Sonoma's down to what, 57%, and Mendocino's down to almost dry. And they have to keep the rivers flowing there. And that's amazing because we just haven't had 2 years of back-to-back rain enough to fill those reservoirs again.
Right.
So, just take a look at our little system here. It's on the Gualala River. And so, yeah, I have a feeling there's going to be some mandatory rationing. If it hasn't already started, it will.
That's what I was wondering next. Yeah, you haven't heard that term over the years, but mandatory rationing happens in the Bay Area, right?
Oh yeah. It's it's the biggest thing is go ahead and use the water, but don't waste it. So if you have a leaky toilet, come and get some tablets and test your toilet. If you've got a leak somewhere on the house and you're notified by it, in the last drought, I recall when working over on the other side of the bridge that I had to pick my people that were just constant wasters of water and either shut them off or help them through their problem. And we ended up going over with our water operators and hung out with the folks and helped them through their water problem. We did everything but put the pipe in and replace fittings and this and that. But they were very grateful because it cut their water bill down from $800 to $60 a month to, so, wherever as operators we can supply information to the homeowner, that really helps. And some people just do stuff and, they leave the faucet running when they brush their teeth. Well, that's a lot of water. And some people flush constantly and some people don't have low flow toilets.
Right.
So, it isn't a matter of it isn't draconian. It's just, use it wisely and you'll be okay. So
yeah, Randy, that's the other thing I was wondering on this project, this specific CDP that we're handling here, that will help with water conservation in a sense, won't it? I mean, because there won't be as much water loss on this current system the way it is.
Well, we don't have any indication that we're losing any water in the existing pipeline, but I know we were losing a lot of water in the tank. So yes, the tank being taken off, like and putting in those 2 solid plastic tanks, stop that right now.
Stop that.
So that's done. But go ahead.
Is it true that as we have less and less water, it's harder to maintain water quality?
Not necessarily. With the groundwater that comes out of the wells, I mean, that water's fairly consistent as source water. And the water that comes out of the 2 gulches is, it's pretty good. I mean, it comes out fine. And you know, as long as the ground recharge is good down there in the gulches. Yeah, what happens with the water that comes out of the wells, it's chlorinated because it's groundwater and it follows the groundwater rule. And it's been tested and it's been found to be fine. The water that comes out of the gulches goes through a treatment filter, and it's built to remove what they call 4-log. So that's 99.99%. So that gets your cryptosporidium and your giardia, if you have it. But those are gallery wells down there in the gulches. So they have a rock. You know, it's groundwater that comes to the surface, that in the pumping is considered a surface water treatment plant. So the qualities, if the quality goes off, then it's a process whereby, you know, we contact the Division of Drinking Water and say, okay, what would you like us to do, and make it a record that you know, that have to stay on the river.
That's who regulates that, is Division of Water Quality, right?
Division of Drinking Water.
Division of Drinking Water, I'm sorry, yeah.
Yeah, just the DDW.
Okay.
And they have engineers for every area. Ours happens to be a gentleman by the name of Guy Schott.
Okay.
And we keep in touch with him.
Guy Schott, yeah.
Randy,
I'd just like to note John Bauer just joined the meeting in case anybody has questions for John.
Randy, I have one more question for you. When you remove the old wooden tank, by the way, is it made of redwood, or what kind of wood is it?
It's redwood.
It's redwood, okay. Well, will you be able to recycle that redwood, or what are you going to do with it?
Well, it's not going to go to the dump. So it could be resurfaced. It could be a lot of things. It'll probably get stacked up into a couple of pallets, and then when somebody decides what they want to do with it, they'll do that with it. But it's not going to the dump.
Okay, yeah. It just seems like if it's old redwood, it could be reused. You know.
Oh yeah, old redwood tanks are great for making rocking chairs, furniture, and all sorts of things.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Just don't throw it away.
No.
It's not as if it's contaminated, right? Okay.
No.
Okay, so any other? Melissa, go ahead, Melissa.
Yeah, we're talking about general water conservation, and we're talking to someone from the water company. There is a leak, a water leak from a pipe just outside, just on the edge of Ocean View Estates property line and Bauer's property line over in the corner. And I've tried reporting to the manager and nothing got done about it. And it leaks and leaks and leaks. I mean, it doesn't leak. It runs constantly. It's a broken white pipe about 3/4 inch diameter. And there's constant water running out of it.
Have you called David Bauer about that?
You know, I don't remember. It was at a time when I actually believed that George actually did anything that I asked him to, and nothing happened, so I guess I haven't.
Whenever I've seen water leaks, I've reported it directly to the water company, and they've responded rather quickly. They were happy that we called them.
Yeah, that's
okay. I must not have called them. Okay, I'll do that tomorrow.
They want to know about water leaks and water loss.
Do you
Yeah.
have the telephone number, Melissa?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
My number is 925.
No, their number. Do you have the water company number?
Not right in front of me, but I can find it easily.
Okay. It's 884-3579.
Okay, now you'll have to give it to me again.
Okay. Area code 707, of course. 884-3579.
Okay. I will call tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and now on this specific CDP, do we have any other questions? Dawn, Tom, Melissa, myself, anybody in the audience?
I have no questions. Do you need to take action on this, or is
Yeah,
this just for information?
We should. So do you want to make a motion, Don?
Well,
Or should I?
Either way, but I mean, the motion, as far as I'm concerned, is fairly simple. I mean, I think we can just proceed and approve the CDP as written.
Yeah, I think they have the, as Randy was saying, they have the negative deck already. The counties, they're going full steam ahead with this. So it's just a matter of, you know, us after the fact, so to say, giving our recommendation. And if you want me to make a motion, I can. I would recommend that we approve Coastal Development Permit 2020-0029, the replacement of a pre-existing water tank that was failing, and we can fill out our form here and send it to the county, and then they'll have us as a referral agency's approval or recommendation behind them.
Yeah. And I'll second the motion.
Okay, so council members, Melissa, how will you vote on this?
Aye. Aye.
Okay, Tom?
Aye.
Don?
Aye.
And I'm an aye also. I think it's a well-needed project. So we'll send in a letter to that effect, and I'll wish you all the best of luck with getting that funding, Randy and North Gualala Water Company.
Thank you.
Okay. So you want me to do that letter, Dawn? I'd be happy to.
Yeah, if you want to go ahead and do that, sure, Robert.
Okay, it's just going to be a brief one.
Yeah.
Okay, then we've handled our CDP tonight. Why don't we move on to council matters, old business. Tom, do you have an update on the quorum issues?
I'm afraid not. I can give Melissa a little encouragement, though. I did speak to the county council's office. They are reviewing it. I was on the phone with them this afternoon when Robert happened to catch me on the phone. And they haven't decided. It's going to Christian Curtis, the county council, for a discussion. Apparently, on Melissa's side of the argument, there's the belief that it's very difficult to fill seats on these councils, on the boards and councils of Mendocino County. And so there may be some leeway there on the quorum issue. On the other side is the notion that if we had another resignation and we were down to 3 members, we'd have 2 people making a decision on some issues that around here can be pretty controversial. And so, you know, my personal view on that is that they should fill our vacant seats, and we should stick with the 4-seat rule for a quorum. In the meantime, we are sticking with the 4-seat rule until the county council rules. I expect that to be soon. So there will be probably a decision by the next meeting.
I haven't read anywhere in any legal document that says there's a 4-seat rule. I don't know where you're finding it.
They're reviewing it. So I don't want to second guess the county council. This is their area. So let's let them figure it out.
Where is the 4-seat rule? I haven't seen it anywhere. The only thing I've seen said that it's a majority of the seated members. So where's the 4-seat? Where's this 4-seat rule you're talking about?
The question is, was that intentional, or does it need to be changed? And it does say a majority of the council. Our council is defined as a 7-seat council. So
no,
that's the conflict there, and they're working on it, Melissa. I don't want to. You and I can't settle this tonight. It's going to be settled by the county council.
And being that we're a 7-member council, I think it's just good practice if we can all 4 at least attend until we have a little bit bigger council built up again. But
I agree with you, but the wording says a majority of the seated members, not the majority of the members of the number of seats for the council, but the number of
it actually does. Members. There's another sentence that says the majority of the council. So if the council is 7 seats, the majority would be 4.
No, that's not what it says.
Again, we have to let the county council review this.
Yeah. You know, I think
let's move past this.
It's a gray area still to this day. That's why we're checking in with council, Melissa.
Right. I think Melissa brings up a valid point, but I do think we just have to leave this in the hands of the county council and see what their advice and their counsel is on this matter. So we really aren't in a position to definitively decide this.
I can tell you that I would feel extremely uncomfortable being one of 2 people voting for a matter and having that become the policy that we refer to the county office or state office.
You can't have a majority too.
If you have another resignation, we'd be down to 3 members. A majority of that would be 2, so you could have 2-to-1 decisions on that theory.
This is true.
I would not feel comfortable being one of those people.
Nor would I. It's not.
Well, then you just wouldn't.
It's not. It just isn't representative of the community, and I think we need a broader view of the community represented on the council. On a related note, I've asked the county council's office and the county clerk's office to look into why it still says we only have 1 vacancy on the council, even though they've been updating this every month. And I've been complaining about it at least for 3 or 4 months now. And I told them that Robert had heard that there were at least 4 applications. We don't want anybody in the community to apply and feel that their application's being ignored for some reason. We're very eager to see new members on the council, and so they're going to be looking into that as well. But right now, there's no news to report, and there's nothing we can do to resolve that tonight.
Okay.
Okay, let's move on.
Thanks for that update, Tom. Okay, let's move on to GCAP committee. That's Tom and myself.
Right.
And
Robert, I have actually prepared a little 8-slide presentation to bring the community up to date, since most of our audience tends to be looking at this after the meeting. I thought it might be helpful. There have been so many changes around. We want to update people on the Caltrans survey results and also kind of what the options are at this point, and then go into the discussion on the resolution. And then we'll hear public comments for up to 3 minutes each. And then we'll have the council discussion, and we can consider the vote on the resolution. Does that sound agreeable to everybody?
That sounds just fine with me. Everybody else okay?
Okay, Sean.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, Tom.
Okay. I'm going to share a screen then. Okay, as you know, there was a Caltrans survey in January in connection with the town meeting. The results of that survey were reported within the last month, and they found 81% of the community supports the project as a whole. They want Streetscape to go ahead. That's 4 out of 5 people. In particular, they found our residents were, quote, very supportive, unquote, and those are their words, not mine, of sidewalks landscaping, bike lanes, and a two-way center left turn lane between Center and Church. There was no majority reached on parking on any portion of the highway. You'll remember in the survey, it asked about 4 different sections, and none of them drew a majority support. The only current alternative presented in the survey was Alt 4, aside from the original town plan concept, which I'll mention in a minute. And that drew 61% of support, which is strong. The two-way center left turn lane from Church to Ocean was a split decision, 44 and 41 against. I should say 40 people were for it and 41 were against. So there's no decision there. That part of the project in Alt 4, if you have the two-way center left turn lane there, you can't have parking on one side of the street, which is part of Alt 4. So what you would get then is Alt 2. Right? It's basically, that's the difference between Alt 2 and Alt 4. Alt 4 has interim parking up there, and Alt 2 has the two-way center left turn lane.
All the way to Ocean.
The original town plan concept, which was also mentioned as an option in the town meeting, was rejected by a substantial margin. But the survey failed to mention that the town plan has a width exception in it. And that's a critical factor. It wasn't explained well that you could, that the town plan allows for variations in the width. I think most people thought the 80-foot concept was too wide. And that actually is something that the community and MCOG have set aside years ago. It would still require formal approval of the Caltrans district director and the county planning director, but that's, when Robert and I talk about being compliant with the town plan, we're assuming they would sign off on that. And that's why I think this was rejected. I can tell you personally, I voted against that because I know the 80-foot limit doesn't really apply anymore. Now, this survey was very consistent with most past results, the predominance of all the results we've seen over the last 20 years. The GMAC survey conducted in September of 1989 showed 89% of residents in favor of the project if parking for the surf market was resolved versus 81% in the Caltrans survey. Our 2018, 89, and that was in the GMAC survey. It was an informational survey that Don and I conducted.
In what year?
In 2019. 19. I believe it was just before the town hall meeting in September.
Right, okay.
In 2018, there was a town hall that was very supportive of sidewalks, landscaping, bike lanes, the two-way center left turn lane throughout the town, and all off-highway parking. In 2019, we also saw the surf petition, which called for a new proposal after Steve and others raised concern about the lack of parking for the surf, and Steve said the surf might have to close. And that issue is now somewhat resolved thanks to Mr. Bauer's comments in our last meeting that he is eager to go ahead with the surf center project. So that takes that off the table. And another thing that happened there was Caltrans came up with a determination that the center left turn lane was needed on the south end of town due to congestion and funding issues, among other issues. The Save Gualala petition, which now has something north of 1,570 signatures, also supported 3 lanes, one of which could be used for parking or for a turn, sidewalks, bike lanes, landscaping, and parking for the surf to be some solution to this parking for the surf, either interim parking on the highway or off-highway parking. The GCAP committee, I'm speaking for Robert and myself here, views these standards as town plan compliant. And MCOG and other local leaders agreed to that 60-foot limit as allowed by the town plan. So, makes sense. I I wanted to share this. This is an artist's conception of what the north end of town would look like with Alt 4. And there's a photo of the north end today, and you can see a car parked on the right side of the highway. And in the painting, you can see a car parked there as well. The difference between the two is that the bike lanes and sidewalks and landscaping are added in the painting and aren't in the first one. So this is a rough conception. It's just an idea of what it would look like if we went that way. Why are we doing this project? We know that there are people in the community who would prefer Gualala just stay the way it is. And we've addressed that a couple of times. We do hear those people. They were a minority at the town meeting, but I respect that point of view, and we all love Gualala. There are significant safety issues. And here's one. This happens to be a car parked on the highway, a large truck parked on the highway. That makes it almost impossible to see oncoming traffic. And on the lower photo, I wanted to run this because it's looking south from about the view that Javier Chavez had when he was trying to take a left turn and was rear-ended. And today's ICO has a touching letter from Javier thanking the community for its support. And I just want to read the first paragraph to you because it kind of choked me up. As many of you know, I was rear-ended in a car accident on February 4th. I've never been so close to losing my life. My old truck did not have headrests, so the back of my head went through the rear window. I have a severe brain injury, but thank God I made it. You know, if we had a left turn lane at the top of town, this this might not have happened. We can't say it wouldn't, but that's the kind of thing we're worried about. And that's not the first injury accident we've had at that intersection. We do have a lot of off-highway parking in town and the potential for a lot more. And these are the areas that outline. There's over 600 existing spaces. And if the SURF goes through its redevelopment project, we'd add another 90, maybe a little bit south of that. I'm not sure how many really, but you can see that there's a lot of parking now and could be a lot more. So the options facing the community at this point are Alt 1 and Alt 2, which we heard about in June of 2019, I believe. And they're basically the same alternatives, except for a slight shift in alignment. And GMAC previously supported Alt 2 as it was more favorable to the Surf Center. And Caltrans later came up with Alt 4, which is the same as Alt 1 and Alt 2, except it allows for interim parking on the northeast quadrant with a proviso that Caltrans may determine in the future that we need a left turn lane there, or they may determine now. This new injury accident probably adds to that case. In any case, the parking on the northeast quadrant may or may not be moot now. I don't know. And people will ask, what about all three? MCOG, Caltrans, and the community raised concerns over the retaining walls on that. It was non-compliant with the Gualala town plan. It would require a GDP amendment, costing years of time and much more money. The town of Mendocino took 10 years in its amendment. And, you know, we have safety issues that probably need to be resolved. The original GDP, the width was substantially cut to 60 feet under the exemption allowed by that plan. The change only requires Caltrans and the Planning and Building Services to sign off for approval. And there's simply no room for 80 feet, as you saw in one of those photos I showed earlier. I could go back to that if anybody has questions. Now, we've taken a lot of positions on this. I want to mention them in passing. We endorsed Alternative 2 originally because it was more favorable to the surf market. The surf owners still wanted a better proposal and launched their petition, and we came back and endorsed Alternative 2, but with interim parking for the surf market. That still didn't satisfy things, and it led to the town meeting. And in deference to the surf and the community comments at that meeting, we voted to endorse Alt 3, which allowed for parking on both sides of the street. However, that ran into engineering issues and brought large community protest. And so we listened to the community again and endorsed Alt 4 when Caltrans offered that as an alternative to Alt 3, which allowed for some interim parking. It wasn't perfect, and we allowed for either 4A or 4B, as I recall, preferring the parking on the east side, but allowing parking on either side. Now, last month, Mr. Bauer was with us, and we heard the news that the Surf Center sounds like it's ready to complete its redevelopment project. It'll take a couple of years, and as John said, he has some hoops to jump through. I think that would be a very popular and positive development for Gualala, and it would certainly solve the parking problem that has plagued this project for quite a while. Tonight, we'll consider a resolution to ask AMCOG to move forward on alternatives 1, 2, or 4, provided that they will not require a town plan amendment. The GCAP committee, we believe all 1, 2, and 4 all comply with the Gualala town plan without an amendment. However, if Alt 4 does not, the GCAP committee would support Alt 1 or Alt 2 instead of seeking an amendment for parking on the northeast side that really isn't needed. A number of people have asked me, why would there be parking on the northeast side? Nobody ever parks there. I explained it as best I could, and there are some cases for that. But the point is taken. There is, as I showed in that earlier slide, a lot of off-highway parking. So the draft resolution is quite long. It's been published on our website. It was hanging at the post office and has been posted publicly. It was discussed in a large front page article in the ICO today, and I want to thank the ICO for covering this for the community's awareness. But one of the key therefores are on the resolution would be to adopt without further delay either Caltrans alternatives 1 or 2 for the Gualala downtown streetscape, given they already comply with the GDP, or alternative 4 if it can be completed without a costly and time-consuming amendment to the GDP. So that concludes my presentation. And I think, before we get into discussing the resolution, we should take a minute to hear from anybody in the public who wants to comment, and you would be offered 3 minutes to comment.
Who do we have in the audience still?
Kim is here from the surf market. Kim, do you have anything to say on that? Or John, you're here. Or Randy.
Surf, Randy, Melissa, or council members, right? We want audience members.
Well, we'd want to hear from the public first.
Okay.
Okay. I hear no comments. So if it pleases the council, I'll put the resolution on the shared screen. And I don't think it'll be necessary to read it unless somebody wants to read it. I'll be happy to do that. This is a draft. I have one minor change I want to propose in it. First, let me ask, do people want me to read this? Or has everybody had a chance to review it?
I don't think it's necessary. If somebody wanted to have a further explanation on any specific whereas or the other 4 points at the end, I mean, we went it over pretty thoroughly, and we're presenting it, or you're presenting it primarily. So specifics, I think we could talk about.
Okay, I move that we waive reading of the draft resolution. Do I hear a second?
Second, Don, Melissa, myself. Anybody?
Vote.
I'll second that.
Okay. Waiving the reading of the resolution. Can I take a vote? Melissa?
Aye.
Don?
Aye.
Tom? Robert?
Aye.
I'm an aye. Okay, we have it on the website for
Okay.
reference. So if anybody needs to reread it or whatever. Okay.
Now there's one area, I will share it on the screen so that people can look at it. There is one area I would like to amend from the draft. And I'll blow this up a bit so you can see it more clearly. I just want to add in the resolved portion to direct MCOG staff to work urgently with both elected and career state officials and federal sources. I want to insert those 3 words to secure funding for landscaping, sidewalks, and bike path portions of the project, including additional funding from CalSTAY and Caltrans per the governor's order in 1919. The reason I wanted to add federal sources is because of both the COVID Recovery, Economic Recovery Act and the proposed infrastructure legislation that the president's talking about now might become additional sources for this. This is just the kind of project that the president's talking about. It's long delayed infrastructure repair. And I believe that we should ask MCOG to include that in their view instead of just waiting for Caltrans or CalSTAY to act on that.
Okay, that's fine. We're fine with that edit, Tom.
Are there any other changes that anybody would like to talk, or does anybody have any questions about this?
I have just one minor point. Everywhere in this document, you spell out the names of entities that later are referred to with acronyms, except for SECA. So some people might not know what that is. I think you should spell it out.
Good point, Don. Thank you.
Okay, perfect.
Close parentheses. All right. Okay.
What was it he wanted to spell out? I didn't catch it. I'm sorry.
CEQA, for the California Environmental Quality Act.
What about under the resolved section, CalSTA?
That's already spelled out
earlier. Okay.
In the last whereas, the California State Transportation Agency.
Fine,
and
okay.
This is kind of an obscure point. Let me mention this. Governor Newsom, when he rejected the Complete Street Act in a veto, about the same time he issued Executive Order N1919, which directed CalSTAY, California State Transportation Agency, to, quote, manage congestion through innovative strategies that encourage alternatives to driving. Our project would do that, both through sidewalks and bike paths. And that's why I believe that we should be eligible for some funds through CalSTAY, and which is the state agency that would administer that. We are also waiting to hear, we heard this year that we did not get the grant from the Alternative Transportation Program from Caltrans, which is the main faucet of funding for this. I hope that faucet can be opened wider with additional funding coming in from the federal government, or that the state may do that. I have personally written to Governor Newsom on behalf of our committee to ask him to include funding for Gualala and direct the state agencies to fund this project. And I don't want to be secretive about that I did write to the governor on that point. This is clearly an example of a community that favors this, that needs this for safety reasons. Melissa made this point well on the paper today, identifying herself as one of the seniors in town who would benefit from sidewalks so that she can walk through town. Is that too much to ask, that our seniors be able to walk safely through town? It's just unconscionable to me that we have this broken pavement and tell our kids and our seniors to do that, and our visitors. What kind of impression does that make to the people who support so many jobs in this town? Okay, any other comments or changes?
Not for me. Anybody
Then
else?
I think we're ready for a motion. If anybody would like to move approval of this.
I'll move approval of it again as amended.
Thank you, Melissa.
I'll second that.
Second.
Okay, Don, second. Okay, let's take a vote.
Okay, great.
Melissa?
Aye.
Don?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
Robert? I'm an aye. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Council. I will go ahead and write the letter on this. We'll be sending this to MCOG, which is in the process of considering options to give them our advisory position on this. And we'll also be including county planning, county supervisors, the California Coastal Commission. Maybe I'll throw in CalStay, since they're mentioned in here as well. All the agencies that are mentioned should be aware of this as well. CEQA is actually a process in the state that's administered in this case by MCOG and Caltrans. And you know, we're trying to get clarification too on CEQA review process, because we started a CEQA review process in June of 2019. It was never formally concluded. It led from alternative 1 and 2 to alternative 3 and 4. And I think we're ready to close that now. I think that we're still in that CEQA review. So this asks that we waive the need for any further CEQA review instead of launching another review that would, as I put it, retrace well-trod ground and result in additional delay.
Sounds good.
We have people's lives at stake, and we value them. So we want to, you know, we're advising here. It's really an MCOG project. MCOG must decide this.
We're just trying to provide some impetus behind it again here and keep this moving. It shouldn't. It shouldn't die out of our consciousness. Before it's too late, we really need to go forward with this as soon as we can. We heard from our law enforcement again. They're predicting all sorts of things with tourism being even more so because people are wanting to get out. I know we can't possibly accomplish this everything takes time, and this has already taken quite some time. We've been able to accomplish so much all over the years. Why can't we get this done? So,
and you know, I want to say while I'm like most of the community, a little tired of talking about this and would like to see some action, that I'd also like to say I'm very grateful for everybody's viewpoint on this. We do listen to everybody. We have heard everybody. We've tried to be inclusive in this process. And I am very gratified that our community has now come together. And I want to thank the agencies involved for their participation in basically confirming these results one more time. But I really think that after all the meetings we've had, discussions, town halls, petition drives, angry letters to the editor, all that stuff over 20 years, gosh, it's time to move forward. Enough talk, more action. So that's what this is about.
Maybe we should send a copy of the resolution to Governor Newsom too.
Good idea. I'll put the Gov on the list. Okay. The Gov is facing a tough political issue right now. Maybe this will catch his attention. Okay. That's it. Okay. Thank you very much. We can move on.
Thanks, Tom, for that presentation. Okay.
You're welcome.
Looks like you're up next again. Housing and Economic Development Committee.
Yikes, me again. I just have a real quick item here, and it's good news. This just came in over the transom today from our good friends at West Business Development Center. The There are new grant opportunities. The Shuttered Venue Operators Grant, SVOG grant program, includes over $16 billion with a B dollars in grants for shuttered venues to be administered by SBA's Office of Disaster Assistance. SVOG program is open for application on or after April 8th, which is just next week. So I don't know if that pertains to anything here in Gualala. Maybe some of our neighboring communities, if they're hearing this, will be interested. I know Point Arena has shuttered a couple. Maybe Mendovina is interested, I don't know. But, you know, the hotel kind of shut down. I was there for the very last entertainment show they had at the hotel, Jess and Jesse. Missed those guys. Like to see them playing again. So that's one grant. The other one coming soon is the Restaurant Revitalization Fund. She put an exclamation point on this for good reason. This one does affect us. West will continue to update our website as we learn more about this $28.6 billion funding program designed to boost the restaurant industry. I can't tell you how many people in this town work 2 or 3 jobs and run around from restaurant to restaurant. You know it, you see them. And having worked my way through college in restaurants myself, I love those people. And we want to keep all our venues open and keep that industry very vital. So I want to make sure that's available. Everybody knows about that. I'll be contacting some of the businesses in town when I hear more about that. That's basically the only thing I have on the HED agenda tonight.
Okay. Thank you, Tom. Moving on to the electric vehicle charging station agenda item. Dawn, you're the impetus behind this. You've had some good correspondence with MCOG and Janet Orth there. You want to take lead on this?
Yeah. Tom, can you let me share a screen?
Sure. Let me make sure you have that ability. It takes me a little while to find it. Security, let's try that. There you go, Don.
Okay. I just tried it and it said host disabled screen sharing.
On mine, it says allow participants to share a screen. Let's try it again. You can't do it?
Okay, now, yeah, it looks like I'm allowed to do it, but I'm not seeing my screens in order to actually share it. So
you see a little button to share a screen.
Oh, yeah. No, I already hit that.
Oh, yeah. So when you hit that, you're seeing, you don't see the screens, they don't come up?
Just a second.
You should get a pop-up screen that shows the screens open on your computer.
Oh, I know.
Then you can pick one and hit the share button. Mary just got a nod there. Is your computer fixed?
No, they will be back in an hour.
Okay. Got to give your sons a break.
Okay, now it's working. It was a security issue with my MacBook, so I had to fix that. Okay, do you see that now?
Yeah.
Yes.
You see the document? Okay. All right. So,
yes, we do.
Yeah, Robert mentioned MCOG, recent communications regarding MCOG. I've been sort of in this email loop with occasional messages from Janet Orth of MCOG. She said on March 10th, she met with Caltrans District 1 Planning and Local Assistance Team and others to discuss the feasibility of the Gualala site. for a charging station. And she said Caltrans came back with 3 options that are apparently under consideration. The first option we're going to throw out because it's really, it's not what we want. And, you know, that would basically be a free EV charging station. That doesn't make any sense. Options 2 and 3 do make more sense. Option 2 is the possibility of regulations that would change to allow an EV charging station on state property where you could charge a fee. That apparently is being considered and looked into. But option 3 is probably what most likely is the way we're going to hopefully be able to move forward. And that is the relinquishment of a portion of the Caltrans right-of-way, ROW, at the site. And that would be just a small section at the northern part of that pullout, which is what we've been looking at because that's very close to the PG&E transformer, that large transformer box. So she indicates Caltrans staff is following up on that. So that's encouraging that there is now some communication, direct communication between MCOG and Caltrans on this possibility of ceding a part of that pullout to the county. Once the county has it in hand, then we could put a EV charging station on the site and have it charge for services. This is what is done, for example, in Ukiah, in Fort Bragg. There are publicly owned parking lots where there are EV charging stations that charge a fee. So that's totally doable if we can get the county to own this little piece of property. There again, it would not be the entire pullout, just a small section of it in the northern part, closest to the restaurant there. So that's encouraging, but on the other hand, we're gonna have to wait and see, you know, what Caltrans comes back with to Janet on this issue. However, overall, I'm feeling encouraged because of what the Biden administration just announced yesterday. And that is that they want, as part of the $2 trillion infrastructure package that will be presented to Congress, and there again, this is a law that Congress is going to have to pass. It's not just an executive order that Biden can wave a wand with and make it happen. But he wants to see 500,000 EV charging stations nationwide within, I think, within 5 years, perhaps, or at the very least within a decade. Now that sounds like a lot, but it's probably not enough. It's probably nowhere near enough is what we really need ultimately. However, that's going to be a big start. And I think we want to be in a position where we can apply for funding that's going to support the installation of this type of infrastructure. And now, if it can happen, certainly I'm in favor of supporting local businesses. If they can take advantage of this as well, that's great. But no, what we're talking about here is a fast charger station, which I think from the standpoint of where Gualala is strategically along the coast, that's going to be the most useful for a lot of people who are driving up here from the Bay Area or driving south from places further north. They need to charge up. They don't want to spend, you know, a couple hours here charging up. They want to fast charge in 20 minutes or half hour, whatever. That's the type of infrastructure that I think we want here. That's going to put Gualala on the map as a key charging location for the entire Mendocino and Northern Sonoma coast. So I'll end this little presentation with a quote from the new Secretary of Transportation, Pete Buttigieg. "To meet the climate crisis, we must put millions of new electric vehicles on America's roads. It is time to build public charging infrastructure powered by clean energy and make it available in all parts of this country. I think that's a fabulous statement by the new Secretary of Transportation, and it aligns with what we're trying to do right here in Gualala.
If you could send that to me, I don't know if you've already done that, Dawn, but if you could send that to me for the record, I would appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I certainly can do that. No problem, Mary.
Thank you. I would really like to add that to the record.
Okay, well, thank you for that, Don. And should we move on here? Let's go on.
I just want to thank Don for pursuing this. It sounds like a positive. You know, on option number 1, I can understand the logic there. We don't have free gas stations now, so why would we have free electricity for cars that are mostly owned by wealthy people?
Right.
And how would we cover those costs? And would that create a precedent that we'd have trouble getting out of in the future? Would it dissuade private companies from having their own charging stations? But it's an interesting point. I have seen free charging stations at various places, which not around here, but in other counties. And always thought they were kind of a cool idea. Usually they're at private companies or something like that. But I suppose that's still an option for anybody who wants to do that for hotel guests or restaurant guests or something like that.
Yeah, there is one free charging station at Elk, and that's on state park property, and that's kind of nice. But it is a level 2 charger. It's not a fast charger. What we're talking about here is a fast charger. Level 2 chargers are cheap, relatively, so they can be put in and the charging subsidized, I guess, without too much of an expense. And I think the reason that was done the way it was done was because there were basically no charges at all anywhere on the coast when they put that in. So it was kind of just something to get started with a few chargers here and there along the coast, and mostly, well, there's one at Point Arena, though that one's not free, but that I think that was put in under the same program. But the ones in, for example, the couple in Fort Bragg that I used, they give you 1 hour free, and then after that you pay, it's like $1.50 an hour for charging. So that's great for people who just want to charge up a little bit while they're doing some shopping. But again, that's a level 2 charger. I've never heard of a fast charger being free, because we're talking about, a lot of juice, charging that battery in a short period of time, that takes a lot of energy. So it's not cheap, and it should be paid for.
And that's an more expensive type of a charging station, correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah. You said, I wasn't going to say anything, but you were talking about how there's some people that don't want to hang around. They want to get a quick charge so they can keep moving up and down the coast.
Right.
I agree with that, but I also want to say that it'll encourage that different kind of clientele, visiting clientele that we're talking about, knowing that they can get a fast charge here in Gualala. And it just adds to the visiting population that we'll have, those kind of folks, and it encourages the whole thing with people switching over regarding climate crisis to electric vehicles, knowing they can go to the coast, get a fast charge, and go somewhere else on the coast, Exactly.
That helps when you have a substantial network of chargers that aren't too far apart.
Yeah.
That reduces range anxiety that you can have with an electric vehicle. You're always kind of a little bit worried, can I get as far as I need to go, with my EV, with the charge I have in my battery? Well, if there are charging stations you know, at regular intervals, then that worry goes out the door. And that's what we need in this country. And that's going to really help drive the transition to electric vehicles, which is needed to transition off of fossil fuels.
Mm-hmm. At least a big part of the population, or some of the population. I mean, there's still always going to be those that are going to drive gasoline-powered engines, but we will be able to help reduce the big problem.
Well, I think there's going to come a day, and maybe decades, where there will not be any gas-powered cars. I mean, GM announced that they are switching entirely to EVs. Mm-hmm. I think it's by what, 2035? They will not be producing any gas vehicles.
Yeah.
And I would bet money that they are not the only manufacturer that's going to be following that path.
I had a gentleman drop by the office yesterday who's very interested in getting himself off of a gasoline-powered truck and getting the new Tesla truck. Believe it or not. So yeah. It'll.
I believe Audi already said they're doing that too. That was last year. They announced they're going to switch to all electric.
Tesla has a really beautiful personalized truck that is really nice and not that expensive. My son wants one, Brendan. He is lusting after it for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a plug-in hybrid, which I would recommend to anybody in Gualala now. You can charge it overnight in your garage on your household current. You don't need a special fancy charger. One comes with the car. And you get about 20 miles range on it, which means that you can run around town or run your errands without burning any gas. And then charge it up overnight again. And you can charge it in the low-cost periods of the day now that PG&E offers. And you get a special discount for electric charging too. So it's not that cheap. It's still about, I figure it's about the equivalent of about $1 a gallon for gas versus the $3.50 or $4 that you see at the pump. So it's a great way to economize, and you can buy a used plug-in vehicle now for $10,000 or less.
Yeah, exactly.
So when you're going out and looking at a used car, you know, consider that as an option. I happen to have a Ford C-Max. They don't make them anymore. I love it. It's a great little car. They make another one, and Chevy makes one, and there's a lot of other plug-in hybrids. Subaru has a pretty good one. It's all-wheel drive. So I just encourage everybody in the community to look at that. And at the same time, if I want to go on the road to Santa Rosa or beyond, I get 47 miles per gallon as a hybrid. That saves me a lot of money.
How many gallons does it hold?
How many what?
What's your gallon capacity?
It holds 10 gallons, I think. I don't think I've ever gotten it down to half a tank. Well, yes, I did. Pam and I drove to Southern California to San Diego, and we would take it down to below a quarter of a tank. As long as you still have 2 or 3 gallons, you could still go another 100 miles or so. So it's very frugal on gas, and you know, it's a great option for a place like we live before the era of high-power chargers comes in. This is something you can buy tomorrow if you need a used car and you're looking at something else that's a conventional engine and uses a lot of gas.
Tom, I think that's an excellent point for people in rural area like where we live here. And especially since you know the EV charging infrastructure is not there yet. We want it to be, but it's not. Let's face the reality. A plug-in hybrid makes an awful lot of sense. A lot of short trips can be done just in EV mode. And when you need to drive a longer distance, you've got the gas engine to get you there. As a matter of fact, you know, I do have an electric vehicle. I have a Leaf. Some of you know that. But the range is somewhat limited. It's 90 miles. I mean, I can get back to the Bay Area, but I do have to stop and do a major charge in Sebastopol, for example. But I recently decided to get a used plug-in hybrid. and I got a Prius for like under $8,000. That's got a lot of miles, but I've just started to use it recently. I still have my Leaf. My Leaf I drive most of the time, but if I'm making a longer trip, I'm going to use the Prius. And I've gotten 77 miles to the gallon, which is phenomenal, you know, combined. Now, that's with doing a lot of short trips, doing short trips in EV mode, longer trips in gas mode, that full tank of gas, 77 miles. I mean, how do you beat that?
Yeah, when I get in my Ford, I get a little indicator on the dashboard. It's very advanced technically. And one of the things it tells me is the range I have. And typically after a night's charge, because with a full tank, it's over 500 miles. I could drive from here to San Diego without refilling. So that's pretty cool. I like that a lot. I wish I could take it up skiing. I wish it was four-wheel drive. My neighbor has an all-wheel drive Subaru, the Crosstrek, which is a plug-in. She doesn't burn gas around town, but gets, I think, 38, 39 miles per gallon on the hybrid drive. I get about 47. EPA says my combined mileage is 88, but that's kind of meaningless with plug-in. So, yeah, basically, I just never burn gas around town.
Yeah, the other advantage that any type of a hybrid, plug-in hybrid, or EV vehicle gives you is that you can get on the rate plan from PG&E, which is called EV2 home charging. What that does is basically cuts your cost per kilowatt hour almost in half between the hours of midnight and 3 p.m. No matter what you do. I mean, obviously during that time period is when you want to charge your vehicle, between midnight and 3 p.m. But any other device you have, washing machine, dryer, dishwasher, whatever, that uses a fair amount of electricity, if you use it before 3 p.m., you're getting the cheaper rate. So there's a real advantage for you to save money, not only on gas with a plug-in, for example, but you're going to save money on electricity.
Right. 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. is when most people use all the energy, right? Was what I've heard. Till
now PG&E.
That's true.
And now the default plan on PG&E is they're charging a higher rate from 4 to 9. You can opt out of that.
Right.
But they're trying to encourage people to do their wash and charge their cars earlier in the day. So if you opt out of it, you stay on their standard rate all day long. Obviously, between 4 and 9, you're watching TV. We're on our computers. You might be cooking dinner. If you have an electric stove, you're going to use a lot of electricity between 4 and 9. You probably want to stay on the regular rate plan. But if you have gas heat and a gas stove and can limit your use of electricity to lights and TVs and things like that, those are fairly low consumer devices, and you'll save a lot of money.
So the next step is we'll be waiting for Caltrans staff to get back to us, right, Don?
Well, they're getting back to Janet Orth, and then Janet, I'm sure she will keep us informed as to the progress she makes or doesn't make with Caltrans.
Okay, because this shouldn't take all that long for coming up with a footprint, a layout for this comparable charging station? You wouldn't think.
Well, I think first Caltrans needs to decide whether whether they're willing to relinquish, and at that point, then they're going to need a little plan, a footprint of what we want, what the county wants.
How can we help encourage them to relinquish that, Caltrans? I mean, they were willing to go to the extent that they showed it in our streetscape plans, that area.
Yes.
That was great, I thought.
I think that is another argument in favor of this happening, for sure, that it's in the latest streetscape plan.
Yeah, and we've had conversations with other groups in town, and we've discussed how we think that area can be useful for a number of compatible uses, whether it's a couple of parking spaces for a long vehicle heading south or whatever. It has the ability to have multiple uses down there.
Exactly.
So, okay, well, keep up the communication with Janet Orth, okay?
Okay, will do.
Okay. Any other questions on this topic item here? Otherwise, we'll move on to, where are we? 6E, Telecommunications Committee, YouTube views. Hess and Murphy.
I'll take that first, if that's okay. Don, you can stop sharing. On telecommunications, the only thing I have on that is YouTube views. And I'm happy to say that we're back to higher numbers on our audience. We had 103 views of our meeting last month, plus another 8 views. I noticed that the peak interest was on Mr. Bauer's presentation about the Surf Center. So I broke out that 6 minutes as a separate piece, and that now has 8 views. I just put that up yesterday. So between the two, we have 111 people who tuned into those things. The other hot topic last month was the cell tower. As we know, that's an interesting item to people. So those 2 items drove the views back up last month. And I'm really pleased to hear people in the community are finding this valuable. And it's really great to see a lot of response to this kind of use of this. And I'm just very worried that when we go back to live meetings, we'll lose ground on this. And I really want to make sure we keep this alive somehow. I have nothing else. Don, do you have anything for this committee?
No, not really. I apologize for not putting a little time into updating our website to
me too.
Provide a different look. I'd like to, hopefully get on that within the next month or 2.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. We both need to work on that. I did want to mention one thing. Last month, I incorrectly stated that nobody's using the dark fiber in town, and I was corrected by one of the folks affiliated with one of our ISPs, who told me that his company and the other major vendor are using that dark fiber and plan to use more of it. So I stand corrected.
Okay, thank you guys for that. Moving on to 6F, that's the Water Ad Hoc Committee. Don and I have something to report on the Water Forum update. So Don was going to start that off.
Okay.
I have a screen to share, I think you said, right?
Yeah, I'm going to share screen again. That's not it. Okay, let me see what's going on there.
I see it.
Okay, does everybody see that?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, well, Robert and I have been, discussing how we're going to sort of organize this water forum, and we've got, some ideas here. First, I want to go over the goals and a tentative date. We've sort of set May 19th now as a tentative date if we can get buy-in from the participants. That is open to change, of course, but we want to at least, give you something to work with, to start working with here as a date. As far as the goals, I've got 5 goals here set up, of course, that Robert and I sort of decided on. Number 1 is, to provide a public forum for stakeholders related to water and knowledgeable, interested parties to openly discuss current and future water issues. 2, we want to present to the public the current state of water systems for Gualala and perhaps Sea Ranch and surrounding areas. Surrounding areas presumably would be mostly wells, I guess. Well, I guess Point Arena they have a city water system as well.
Right.
3, present to the public how climate change and the risk of a mega drought may affect water access, usage, sustainability, and biodiversity going forward. 4, discuss possible solutions and perhaps different approaches to ensure adequate water supplies in the coming decade and beyond, all in keeping in mind the foundational idea of sustainability. And 5, provide the public and GMAC with factual information and ideas in order to, if desired, forward recommendations to the County Board of Supervisors. So in a nutshell, that's sort of why we're organizing this and sort of the main themes that we want to cover. In terms of the format, of course, we'll be using Zoom, virtual online meeting format. The idea would also be to promote this forum with the ICO, GMAC website, of course, perhaps put up some printed posters and social media where appropriate. Robert and I would be the moderators for this forum. Of course, we certainly want all GMAC members to attend and participate, but we would be the moderators. We'd have an introduction. In the introduction, we're thinking present a brief history of the Gualala River, present some information on climate change and the local impacts of climate change in our region as it relates to water. Present a list of questions that GMAC has related to ongoing and future sustainable water supply. And as members of GMAC, I think we can all be involved in coming up with some pertinent questions that we'd like to pose for the people who are participating in this forum. And there would be a panel. So there'd be in effect guest speakers on a panel. Each would be provided a certain amount of time to present their views, their ideas, their knowledge, their suggestions. We have a list of organizations here that we feel are key to participate in this particular forum. These being, of course, the North Gualala Water Company, the Gualala River Watershed Council, the Gualala Community Services District, Friends of the Gualala River, the North Coast Regional Water Quality Control Board, perhaps Sea Ranch Water Company as well, so just next door to us. And there may be a couple other panelists as well who may or may not have a specific affiliation, but who are very knowledgeable in this area. Once those presentations are done, we would perhaps then have an open panel discussion for maybe 30 minutes or so, and then public question answer session, 30 to 45 minutes. Questions could be submitted beforehand, or during the event itself. The questions could be directed at any of the panel members, for example, or to anybody who wants to provide an answer. And then there would be closing comments, of course. So, you know, we just wanted to share with you our ideas at this point of how this event would be organized, so that, you know, as council members and certainly any of the members of the public who are attending, they get an idea of what we're trying to accomplish here. Robert, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I know from past history when we've tried to do these kind of forums in our community of Gualala, they've been quite successful. Two of the forums I've been involved with were the Emergency Preparedness Forum that we had at the community center. It's been many, many years ago. That was partially sponsored by the Chamber of Commerce when it was still up and running pretty strongly at that time. And then, what was it, a couple years back, we had a public citizen, Chuck Henderson, if you remember. He was an instrumental force in that, coming up with a fire forum, was really well attended at the community center. So I think a water forum and doing this hopefully will garner just as much interest and attention on a platform like this, on a Zoom platform, especially if, like we're proposing, we get the word out to the ICO and put a couple posters up and start broadcasting it now that we're kind of coming in with some tentative ideas here. So any input, any questions you have in the meantime from us, for us, please let us know, or any additional topics or panelists you might want to hear from. We'll certainly consider it.
Yeah, I have a couple of thoughts. First of all, thank you for doing this. It's good progress. I'm glad to see it. I've through my career, I've been involved in putting on a lot of events similar to this. And I think I've mentioned before that I was very impressed with the Earth Day presentation that the Ayurvedic folks put together.
Yeah.
That was, it's a little bit longer. It was like a half day long on Earth Day. Might have been 6 or 7 hours. It was pretty long. I know I couldn't sit through all of it myself that day. But I noticed this total would be something like 2 to 3 hours probably. Were you thinking about having this during the day or in the evening?
This was 19th of May. What was it, a Wednesday?
Yeah,
it is a Wednesday. Yeah, I was thinking more late afternoon, but I'm not exactly sure what the best time period would be for this.
And when you decided on a Wednesday, you know, obviously a weekend, some more people might be able to attend than on a work day. Could I hear a little thinking about that?
Well, being that it's on a Zoom platform, it's different than like Earth Day was, or other Saturday forums that we've had in the past where people were attending the community center. How to best garner the attention of the listening public, we thought middle of the week. What do you think, Don? Isn't that what we're talking about?
Yeah, I think the other thought that we had was that some of the participants who, you know, work for these organizations, in particular the North Coast Regional Water Quality Control Board, they may only want to participate during working hours. I don't know, you know. And the other thing is the weekend, yeah, maybe you get more participants, maybe you don't. I think that depends on maybe the weather. If it's really beautiful day, I mean, a lot of people might want to be out and about enjoying the weather. You know, as opposed to during the week. So
I think there's a
you know.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Tom.
I just asked that just because I'm curious about your thinking on it. And, you know, I'll leave it to you guys to figure out what works best. And if I can help in any way, of course, let me know. One other thing I was thinking of is a lot of panelists there. And you're going to have a fairly long program. And if you're tying up people during the workday, one of the things that usually works better is to have maybe 2 panels. A little bit shorter, same amount of time between the 2 panels, but split it up a little bit, maybe to water resources, public agencies versus environmental factors having to do with water. I know John is still on the call tonight. He might have something to say about this, but every time we look at a THP, we talk about water. When we talk about fire, we talk about water. Well, you know, water is a intricate part of our restaurant industry, which now is required to serve water only on demand. Its health is an issue on water. People don't drink enough water. And backyard gardens. We have the pot cultivation thing going on. Are we going to divert a lot of water to growing marijuana the way we would for wine? Is that a logical thing to do in a drought? I know the county's wrestling with that one. I don't know. These are just, you know, there's a lot of issues here. I'm not sure. I would love to see, in addition to kind of a panel focused on water itself, the gathering, delivery, availability. I would also like to see a panel with its impact on housing, the effect of the timber industry on water. We have a lot of people who work in the timber industry. And I've heard John make arguments that, well, you know, it doesn't affect that underground water supply. I'd like to hear a balanced conversation on that would help us come to better deliberations. So I would just, one idea I'd throw out there is have 2 separate panels and divide them however you think is right, and invite some of those other folks. You know, it's frustrating to me. I think about housing a lot because the Housing and Economic Development Committee. And we have a real housing issue. You know, the Gualala Trading Post the other day, somebody said something about housing. It drew 85 responses of people who are just frustrated with the lack of availability of housing. We can't build an ADU unit. We can't do a lot of things right now. You know, with this infrastructure grant, maybe we'll get the money for that reservoir that the water company's been talking about for so long, or maybe we won't, I don't know. But what impact will that have? Will that increase demand? Do we have the water there to serve that? So people down on Sea Ranch who have a reservoir are complaining about the taste of the water now versus the taste of the water from the ground because of additives and additional processing. It's interesting to me to see those things. That may come up in the Sea Ranch Water Company discussion. But I would just encourage you to think about having 2 panels instead of 1. It also means that somebody could come and stay for 1 panel, and if they have to leave, they can leave and not wait for the whole rest of the meeting. Just gives them a little bit more flexibility. You might have more luck getting guests to come. Don't rule out the planning committee, the county planning agencies. They may want to send somebody on this too. Anyway, enough time. Very good work. I'm glad to see the progress. Look forward to this.
Hearing all that.
Those are good points, Tom. And I do agree that water is a multifaceted issue. You know, it's not just, okay, where's the water that we drink? It's so much more than that. And so it's, you know, how do we cover this effectively in a short period of time? I don't know. I can't guarantee that every possible subject of water and how it's used and or conserved or delivered can be covered the way everybody might want it to be in a forum like this. But I think really my thinking about this is that because we appear to be entering a mega drought period, and there's some science behind that, and why, you know, we will cover that in the forum. What are we going to do? What are we going to do if, for example, the North Fork of the Gualala River dries up. You know, we have to start thinking about these problems and hopefully come up with sustainable solutions. Yeah, it's not that this forum is gonna, you know, somehow resolve everything. I think it's primarily designed to raise these issues, raise consciousness about the situation we are in related to climate change and a likely mega drought, so that, you know, we're moving forward with our eyes wide open and hopefully can make good decisions related to sustainable water for the decades to come. I think the days of consistently wet, rainy winters here are over. And that's something we really need to come to terms with in terms of water availability.
With all these ideas that we've heard now, in addition to the ones you just presented to us, Don, and what Tom brought up, I'm looking at it as we're going to have to limit this forum to maybe certain items, this first forum, let's call it, because it's going to be really too much and too scattered otherwise. If there's a way we can refine it maybe so that we talk about more area specific topics and issues, maybe we'd be better off on this forum. But I don't know, without you and I getting together again in our committee and talking about it and taking some of these comments that people have offered us, how we can maybe, you know, make it more effective by making it more specific, the things we cover. We just came up with these ideas and try to get every, you know, kind of agency that's out there discussing this, but I can see it getting into a longer, bigger thing, and that we just can't possibly cover enough in enough depth. But
I have a thought on that. Well, there's two things you could do in that case. You could limit, well, three things. You could limit it, which I think is kind of a shame when we're trying to do a really comprehensive view. We could elongate the meeting. The Earth Day program that the Ayurvedic Center went on for a long time, and people came and went, different panels came and went. You could go for a 4 or 5 hour meeting if you pick the right time to do it. And the other thing is you could, from the very start, say this is going to be a two-parter, 2 nights in a row, or 2 consecutive Wednesdays afternoons, or Wednesday and Saturday or something. If you can't make one, please try to make the other. We'll put them both up on our YouTube channel. So there's some flexibility there. You know, I would say while you're working this hard on this, and there's so much to pull together, don't stop short. Don't find yourself limiting it at this point. Right. Find yourself finding ways to get more into the output of this effort.
Yeah, Tom, I think the idea of possibly having a 2-part series on this might make sense. And then for each segment, we would have different panelists. So we're not, you know, asking the panelists to come back, you know, 2 different times. And, you know, we have enough subject matter certainly that we could probably do that. And I also think you know, one of the services that this type of a forum could perform is, as I mentioned earlier, is to raise people's consciousness. If, in fact, we're going to be mandating conservation in a much more serious way, then people need to understand the reasons behind it and why it's so important for them to buy into it and to really start to change their habits in terms of water usage. I am totally convinced that the vast majority of people that live in this area could do quite a bit more to lower their usage of water, but still have enough to do all the basic functions that they need it for. I'm totally convinced of that.
Right.
But I think they need to buy into that. And part of that, in order to help them do that, I think we need to present a case, and it needs to be a strong case that, yes, we are in a situation, perhaps not only this year, but in future years, where water becomes a more and more precious resource that we just cannot waste.
Earlier in the meeting, it was brought up about the possibilities of us facing mandatory rationing. Yeah, before it came to that extreme, it would be good if we could maybe curtail our habits or find ways to conserve even better, like you're saying, Don. So the topics that are the most important, we have to kind of hone in on, I think, and bring them up. Like the other thing we were talking about, Don and I, was, and I know the water company had brought it up in past years before, and Sea Ranch Water Company brought it up before, that Sonoma County was promoting a program for people to, helping them, assisting them with getting lower water consuming fixtures and things like that. I don't know if Mendocino has something like that, but getting back into that mode where we can help people conserve water, especially in these times where we know we're going to be faced with some extremes here if we don't do something.
Yeah. Oh, good point, Robert. And I think if we do sort of expand this a little and have a two-part series, then I think we can go into a list of suggestions of what people could do, and also look into what kind of help people could get to, for example, swap out their older toilets and put in very low flow toilets. And apparently the toilet itself is the device that uses the most water in a household. So swapping that out to save, for example, a gallon a flush, that is significant. Mm-hmm. So, there's some things like that we can pursue, hopefully. Maybe if we do expand it to a two-part series, go into things like that.
I think air pressure toilets use only a half a gallon. They pump up the air and then they use it. It's only a half a gallon. I wanted to suggest that you invite CAL FIRE, Gualala Timber, the state representative, the supervisor, Williams, and the business community people, just to sit and listen. They don't have to be on a panel, but just, it would be nice to have CAL FIRE listen to all of what's going on without them being on a panel, and just somebody, from them hearing what's going on and what people think about this. And Gualala Timber doesn't have to say a word, but they certainly can listen. Supervisor Williams, it's in his purview, and so is the state representative, that they should know what's going on here. And,
right.
Just to listen. They don't have to be on a panel. They don't have to say anything.
Right, Mary, we did discuss that in the case of our supervisor. We thought we'd at least send him an invitation so that he could hear in, but those other entities that you mentioned, that would be a good idea too, yes.
Yeah, just to listen.
Randy Burke just had a good idea too, to invite the Kashia.
Oh yes, absolutely.
Oh, the Kashia, yeah.
Yes, absolutely, but they are in Sonoma County. And it would be nice to have someone from
same water
County also, the Mendocino, the Manchester Point Arena tribe. They're a different people than Kashia.
It's a bi-county issue.
Yes, it is. Absolutely. Have both of the tribes there.
Mm-hmm. Our native friends don't really understand our county lines anyway, so it's cool. it's all the same water, it's the same earth, and we need to think more like that as well, I think.
Absolutely.
It's the same,
You know,
same watershed.
it's interesting. I get a lot of emails related to Sea Ranch because we own a lot down there. And it's interesting to hear the Sea Ranchers talk about the timber plans versus what we hear in Gualala. It's night and day. Not because they're just all environmentalists, just because they have a really different viewpoint strategically on the use of timber in a community that basically is 1,800 custom homes made out of redwood and cedar, a lot of which are unattended, unoccupied, and tend to rot in the bad weather. So it's
preserved.
it's an interesting point of view. They're working on a deal now to protect their redwood stands in perpetuity to help, in part, to preserve water, but also to preserve the wood. And Sea Ranch stands to gain hundreds of thousands of dollars as a result of that contract. Gee, Gualala could use some money, you know. It's something we could think about as well, but that's private land. So anyway, enough said, sorry. I've been saying too much.
But yeah, Don, we'll continue to work on this as far as our invitee list, the suggestions about timing and date. But we wanted to present something tentative, what we're working on at least. So we got some of this input from you. So what else should we cover, Don, at this point?
Before you, oh, I'm sorry. Are you still on this item?
Yeah. Or are we kind of done, Don, at the moment?
Well, I think we presented, you know, everything in terms of our thoughts up to now and our general outline, and we'll take the feedback that we've gotten from council members and Mary, and you know, throw that in the mix and see what we come up with next.
Okay. Tom, you wanted to say something still?
Yeah, Randy asked me a question through the chat that I wanted to pass along to Robert and Don. He was asking on the resolution regarding the water company CDP, was the approval language including the pipeline with the tank or the tank only? And
No,
Randy's still with us, so if you have a question, he can speak to it.
It meant the entire project, which included the collection line, the transmission line, as it's stated on the CDP. That it was approval for the entire project, and that's how I understood our advisory recommendation.
That's how I understood it too. I just wanted to make sure that, you know, thank you very much, Robert.
You bet. Sure. Including the addition of the 5 fire hydrants, not currently able to provide adequate volumes for demand, and, you know, for fire flows and whatever else for the protection of the 117 customers up there. Yeah. It's just that we didn't specifically mention the 3,120 feet, but I can do that in the letter, or I can, you know, it's as presented. Well, this project, we are giving our advisory recommendation.
Yeah,
I mean, all those activities are included in the CDP, right? So if we approve the CDP, then everything under that CDP is approved.
Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. Okay. What are we getting to? What time now? Getting to be 8:30. Okay. Should we move on then? We had enough input, Don?
Yeah, I think that's great. Thank you, everybody.
Okay. So let's go to Administrative Secretary Mulbert's report.
I have no report. I have no statement. My computer has been off and on, down and up all this month. It's the hard drive that has a glitch in it. And as you saw, my sons are over here working on it and trying to get the new hard drive in. They're going to copy it over bit by bit, byte by byte to the what is in there, and then sector it, because I think 360 megabyte is what is one sector, and then they'll do the rest of it for the rest of the 500 megabyte hard disks. At any rate.
Okay, well, Mary, you're gonna forward your March statement to me when you can, and the March minutes, right?
I will, and okay. I will finish the minutes ASAP. I will get you a statement for last month. I will balance my books for this month. I haven't been able to do that, let alone last month. So I have 2 months of bookkeeping I have to do and all sorts of other stuff. So well, it's going to be maddening.
Good luck with repairing all that.
But I'll have a new hard drive, by golly gee whiz. And it's a solid state hard drive. It's not one that spins, which is really nice.
Yeah.
So
well, you got 2 good sons helping you, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you for that.
500 gig, I think.
Vice
Which is
Chair,
nice.
Let's move on to Vice Chairman Murphy's report then.
Yeah, thank you. The only thing I want to mention to our community is we're not out of the COVID thing yet. France is shutting down. Germany's considering it. The president and the head of our CDC have asked everybody to please, please wear masks. Just because you've had 2 shots like I have doesn't mean you don't wear a mask anymore. It's very important. There are variants flying around that are much more contagious than the original virus and may or may not be covered by the vaccines we're getting. To quell the growth of those variants, we need to be strict about wearing masks, or we may be facing another shutdown too. We're heading that way, not here locally, but in the United States. There are states that are just completely out of control. Michigan is one of those states. If you're tired of wearing a mask, join the club. But not wearing a mask, I agree with President Biden on this, is unpatriotic. Wear the damn mask, get the shots, and encourage your friends to as well, because we got to get past this thing. And that's the way we're going to do it. No ifs, ands, or buts. No excuses. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, Tom. Thanks for that reminder. We are getting too lax too quick. Yeah. Okay.
Good points, Tom.
Yeah.
Good points.
Need those reminders. Okay. Under my report, I just wanted to let the council know I've sent another email off to Ted Williams asking him about the status of a council member of applications, and I hope, and then I followed up with a text, so I'm hoping to hear back from him sometime soon. He's got to be super busy, I'm sure, at his level, but I'll keep pursuing that, as I mentioned I would be doing at the last meeting, so that we know a way forward here in how to maybe pursue some advertising for the council member seat, or are there any applications pending, or what's going on? So I'm hoping to get some more news for you all on that. And that's all.
Robert, I think you told me previously that there were at least 4 people who had applied. Is that correct?
Well, I remember when we had the initial cell tower project before us, the cell tower CDP, not the one we had subsequent, the microwave one, but the initial CDP, the tower. There were a few, 2 or 3 applications that came in just during that time from people that wanted to specifically get onto GMAC because of those reasons, because of that cell tower. And I remember him and I, Ted and I having a conversation about that. But I don't know of any others that are still active. I heard about one fellow that had submitted an application and then resubmitted it, so it's apparently still active. But I wanted to touch base with Ted on that and see where we're at. So I'll continue.
I know I've referred at least 2 or 3 different people who asked me about it to speak to Ted or to you for an application. Mm-hmm. But I don't think those are in common with the ones you're talking about. And I've sent the link out for the application, which is now gone, by the way. You can't apply online anymore.
Oh, really?
But I have directed people to call the county clerk's office and ask about how you apply and talk to Ted. that's probably the best way, is to tell Ted you want to volunteer to help serve and represent the Gualala area. You know, I would really like to see a multi-generational council here. I would like to see some younger thinking. We have a lot of new people in the community.
Right.
We have people with more kids here now. We have a big turnover in the town. We've had 54 home sales in 2020, which is a significant number when you consider this is a town where people come and stay and live, versus say Sea Ranch. Sea Ranch had 114, but Sea Ranch is a place where people invest in places, live there part-time, maybe sell it after a bunch of years.
Yeah.
This is home to a lot of people. So for 54 families to be turning over their houses, that's kind of a lot. There were 117, by the way, excluding Sea Ranch, 117 from Timber Cove to Elk, according to data provided by Kennedy Real Estate. So I know there are people interested in coming in. We have new folks in town, and I want to encourage people. We are looking for people of all ethnic backgrounds, genders, religions, whatever you are, come and join us. We'd like to have you in our fold.
And keep in mind, they need to be residents of the GMAC jurisdictional area, and they need to vote in Mendocino County. Those are the 2 requirements.
And a reminder, that's jurisdictional area is basically the ridge to the ocean from Iverson Road down to the county line.
Right, right.
I'd like to see GMAC as diverse as Biden's new cabinet.
That'd be great.
Okay, anything else here before we we need to set a schedule or a meeting, next meeting date. We don't have that on the agenda, I noticed just now. Well, that would be, what date would that be?
First Thursday, that'd be May 6th.
May 6th, okay.
We don't have to set that, do we? Isn't it standing?
No, that's automatic, but usually I thought we had it on here. But okay, well, we're ready to adjourn then, basically. We know that we have a May 6th meeting. Okay? So
Melissa?
Melissa, will you want to make a motion to adjourn?
A motion that y'all leave me alone, let me go to bed.
Okay.
Good night.
You need to adjourn first, or make a motion.
Yeah, that's a motion to adjourn.
Okay, thanks. Who would like to second that motion?
I'll second
it.
My cat will second it.
Okay, let's vote on that then.
Who seconded it? Who seconded it?
I think it was Dawn.
Dawn, thank you.
Either one. I think we both did.
Okay, let's vote. Melissa?
Aye.
Dawn?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
Robert? Aye. Okay. Thanks very much.
Good night, folks.
Everybody.
Okay, good night, everybody.
All your input.
I want to thank Randy and John for staying with us through the whole meeting, too. Take care.
Thanks, you guys. Yeah. Okay.
Have a wonderful month, you guys. See you next month.
Stay safe.
Bye-bye.
All right. Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you.